record here. Okay, so hello, thank you everyone for joining. This is only the second Happy Runner Hangout that I've done. The first one was with Lindsay Hine, where we talked about kind of like 2021 goals, what to do with races, not the unknown of races right now, what's going to happen. And I'm really excited to have Mary here from Lift Run Perform. She's a run coach and awesome at strength training and lifting and has a lot of experience with injuries. And I'm just really excited to just talk with all of you, and especially Mary. Mary, if you want to add more of a little intro about yourself and about Lift Run Perform too, go ahead.
Yeah, so I started Lift From Perform 3.5 years ago. And I was so personally started strength coaching on the floor in the gym that if you were here, I was mentioning. So I was doing in-person training, and then started run coaching about a year after that. And I was with McCurdy Train. And then after working with them for about a year and change, I decided to do my own thing. Also, mostly because I wanted to do the strength coaching virtually. And so the opportunity wasn't there unless I did it on my own. So I branched off to my own thing. And now we have myself and 10 other coaches, or I guess 9 plus me. So it has turned into something that I didn't ever imagine happening. But it's been really awesome to just have, I think the bottom line is that running in general, I think personally, and probably all of us could relate to this. Like, our relationship with running has probably changed a lot, not just during COVID, like in our lives. And I noticed that in terms of my relationship with coaching and running, and my relationship changed from being more results driven, not to say we don't get good results with our coaching, but more focused towards like the process and enjoying yourself and not getting injured, and more of just like an overall gratitude mindset, as opposed to doing whatever it takes, because there's quite a difference of mentalities. So that is where I am today, and maybe in like 2 years I'll be totally different, but
It's just a roller coaster up and
yeah,
down.
exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so in the Google form, I had a handful of you comment and questions that you want us to cover. So we're just going to kind of do a Q&A style. I said this before, but I'll say it again. Please chime in at any time. Use the chat box for any additional questions or any comments you guys want. And it's just very casual. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the topics that you guys wanted us to cover. So one was about nutrition pre and post run. So we had a lot of nutrition questions in terms of like fueling. I'm assuming sports gels, food, like do you eat before and after? So Mary, if you want to start it off just on what you recommend in terms of fuel in general.
Yeah. So, I'll start with the disclaimer in saying that I'm not a dietitian. Nor am I a nutrition coach. So while I've worked personally with both nutritionists and dietitians, I can't necessarily, like, in terms of my scope, I would say it's limited. Though, being that I'm a coach, there are some things that I can suggest.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I guess I don't want to say the most important thing, but I think probably the thing that people get most wrong is in run nutrition. And it's also just such, like, I guess that comes off negatively. Like, I would say it's a very low hanging fruit in that people are just not eating enough. So I can't tell you the amount of people who have come to work with me and they are running 90 to 2 hour marathons, 90-minute to 2 hour marathons, and being like, yeah, I don't eat anything. Do I have to? And I'm like, so I would say, like, rule number one is and I also am going to preface this part by saying that, like, the research, like, you will probably hear coaches be like, yeah, if you run 90 minutes, you don't need fuel. This is what I coach. This is what I believe. It's based on research that I've read that honestly says that more is better. So I tell my athletes that an 80-minute run qualifies as a run that needs nutrition. 80 minutes, meaning you need to aim for, and this is like ideal, you need to aim for around 200 calories per hour. Sorry, I'm distracted by the chats. I have squirrel brain. I just can't look at that. Sorry, Corey. Yeah. So 200 calories an hour is kind of like the general rule of thumb. I want to say that ends up being around 40 grams of carbs per hour. Now here's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I have like 50 like I have half a gel in an hour. Don't worry. Remember that changes aren't made overnight. And so if you are just having half a gel in an hour, then you start working on smaller increments. Like you have to train your stomach just like you train the rest of your body. So, in an ideal world, like what I have trained my body to do is take a gel around 30 to 40 minutes in, and then take my second gel around 60 to 65 minutes in, and then I continue fueling the whole way. Meaning that in a half marathon, if I'm running a 90-minute half marathon, I'm eating like 300 to 400 calories. I would say like 350. So there is also something, I don't know if you've heard of the Morton gels. Gels and fuel. So that kind of takes away that process of like, oh my God, I'm eating another gel, because you just kind of sip at it the whole time and you get your calories in that way. So if you are starting from a low baseline, like you only eat 50 calories in an hour, then aim for 100 and stick with that. And it's something that you have to practice every single week. Most of you guys, unless you're coming off an injury, probably will see a run around 80 minutes. So take every opportunity to practice that. Now, will you die if you don't fuel in an 80-minute run? No, not at all. But use it as opportunity to practice so that when you get to your 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour runs, your stomach is ready to go. So that's like the overall suggestion in terms of in-run fueling. And then obviously just practice different types, because there's so many people who say that they can't stomach anything. And that's probably true, but you have to practice. So that is, and then in terms of hydration, I would say, so the funny thing is that when it's actually cold out, you don't want water, but we actually use more energy warming our bodies up. So we need both water and fuel more than we might need it in the summer, which is also interesting. And so when we talk about hydration, that's a more intricate topic in terms of like how much salt do we all need, because that is very unique. Usually I tell my athletes to, if you're going out in the summer on a run, even like an hour, bring a flask. And I am queen of, I was a baby about carrying things, didn't want to do it. And I got over that. They make soft flasks now. They don't swish. As you suck on them, they just collapse. You can suck them in a bra strap when you're done. They fit a little gel in them. It is like, again, I hate carrying stuff, but you have to. And you have to remember, it's not just the run that you want to feel good on, it's after. And so what you might notice is you might get your long run done and you feel great, but I would wonder how you're going to feel the next day and the next day, because what happens is if you put yourself into what's called a glycogen hole, so glycogen is sugar, basically, you're running, and basically your body is using this to fuel yourself. When you run out of that, yes, you can run on fumes more or less. And when we fuel, we try to keep that bucket kind of level. We never do, right? Like it's impossible to eat as much as you're burning. But the attempt to continue to eat as much as you can won't put you in such a hole after the fact. So think about it more long-term as opposed to like, I feel fine now. And so when it comes to post-run fueling, make sure you're getting in something. You guys have probably heard like, get it, but in 30 minutes. That's not really true. The window is quite a bit longer, but it is important to get a mix of around 20 to 25 grams of protein, plus a carb. So this is where protein supplementation can be really, really helpful, especially for those of us who might not have an appetite when we finish running, and know that it's important to have that protein source. So like a typical post-workout snack I'll have is like, I love my protein. So I have I like Momentous. I have my Momentous protein, and maybe I'll have like half a granola bar or half a banana or something like that, just to hold me over until the next meal. So then eating is also crucial. And then pre-workout's also hairy because everyone's a little different, but ideally you want to look for eating your last meal pre-run around two hours, which for the morning it's difficult. I certainly I have people who can roll out of bed and just go, but in terms of fasted running, research just really isn't there in terms of it being helpful. And again, it all goes back to like digging yourself into that glycogen hole. Like if you're having something before, even if you're not perfect, right? Even if you can't do the 2 hours, it's better than nothing. And if it needs to be just like a rice cake or two rice cakes, fine. You know what I mean? But something is really important.
Yeah. And I would go back to experimenting. I remember when I first started running, all the rock and roll races only have the Goo brand of sports gels. So I was just like, oh, this is what all runners take. And they messed with my stomach so much. So just because someone else, it works for them, don't be afraid if you're having stomach issues or you're just not getting the right solution out of it. Don't be afraid to experiment. Use your training runs to experiment all different types. Like when I started my ultra training, I used applesauce packets, for like toddlers instead of gels, just because they worked better for my stomach. But at least you're still getting in some of that like natural sugar, some calories back in you. And then even just for my half marathon, I had a frozen PB&J halfway in between. So I was just like, I need some calories, some fuel. And I feel like a lot of people, Corey just mentioned she was severely under eating prior to getting a nutrition coach. And I feel like a lot of people think that they aren't, but most people are under eating or not getting as much protein as they need to.
Oh yeah. And Carlin, dates and nut butter dates are awesome because they're just, they're just sugar and carbs. They're so good.
Yeah.
but remember too, to think about, so like one great example is, if you're used to, maybe you can take a Goo, maybe that's fine for your stomach. Something like a Spring Energy does not have maltodextrin. And so the way that's going to enter your bloodstream is a little bit different and slower. So this is why like you might hear ultra marathoners liking Spring Energy because they need to, you know what I mean? Because it's very sustained. So remember that sometimes the chemicals in a gel are there for a reason. So if you do have dates, then I would say maybe you might need to start even 5 minutes earlier. Do you know what I mean? Like instead of the maltodextrin that a gel would have. And then, one other thing that I thought of that I didn't know until recently, so I want to share. So if on the topic of hydration, so something like a Scratch or SOS or Noon, so there's some of these brands that market that they don't have sugar. Now, some of us might have sensitive stomachs to sugar, but what's important to remember is that sugar is actually necessary to have the electrolytes absorb. So when you hear brands say, we don't have sugar, well, that's fine, but I would say you might need that. So something like a Scratch does have sugar, which is going to help keep you hydrated. I love Liquid IV. I love the way it tastes. So that's just something that I recently learned that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. We got a couple people that say Spring Energy is their go-to. Okay, I'm going to go into, so we had a couple of injury questions. So one person just entered in knee pain, I guess what to do for knee pain. And my first suggestion would be to see a physical therapist or your doctor first and foremost, which I know Mary will back me up on that. She told me to go to a physical therapist. So I would always just say, if you are having any type of pain, ongoing pain anywhere that's like nagging you or like brutal pain, go see your doctor, go see a physical therapist, see what it is, and then try and treat it. Don't ignore it. I feel like a lot of people ignore it, especially in the running world.
I will say that I think pain's a really interesting topic, especially when it comes to soft tissue injuries. And first, yes, having a PT on your side is so invaluable. And the silver lining of COVID is there's quite a few telehealth options now. So like that's awesome. But remember, now bone injuries are different, but soft tissue injuries, you might not necessarily want 100% pain-free. Now, this isn't for you to decide and be like, oh, then I can go running. It's more of a conversation between your physical therapist and your coach, and understanding what a baseline pain level is, understanding that if you go on a 5-minute run and it doesn't increase the pain, that's actually a really, really positive thing. So it's understanding this really fine line of where is it that what would overload the tissues to a point where they can't withstand the stress. And that's just all about load management. So don't be scared of pain. And I know it can be really, it's a bummer, especially if you're like, I can't even run for 15 minutes, but maybe you can run for 10. And then you'd want to capitalize on that as opposed to just aiming for 0% pain. And that, again, this is strictly for soft tissues. Bone injuries are totally different. And what to do for knee pain. I mean, I would see a physical therapist because knee pain is could be anything. So you really want to
I know,
have.
I was thinking of ways to recommend, and I'm like, okay, cross train more, maybe do more strength training. A lot of knee pain, which I learned from my physical therapist, is because the muscles around the knee aren't as strong as they need to be to really support the actual impact that running has. But obviously, I want a doctor or a physical therapist to confirm that's what the knee pain is. I don't want it to be like something serious. Have you just like strength training?
Yeah. And the overall thing to remember is that when we hit the ground, the force goes up through our leg. So it's going to cause impact on our hips, our knees, our back, our abs, everything. So if we don't have a stable surface for that impact to repel up the chain, then something along the line is going to take so much of that force and break down. So it's, to Kelly's point, like, sure, we could just say strength train. And the truth is, if everyone got 10 to 15% stronger, like you probably won't have the knee pain, and you won't have hip pain, and you won't have a lot of other pains. But it's not like that isn't necessarily like you might need to do something specific, in which case talk to a physical therapist. But in terms of like blanket statement saying something like strength train, it really just helps. It doesn't ever hurt.
Yeah, that's true. And I was going to recommend, if you've never gone to a running store to be fitted for an actual running shoe, highly, highly recommend. I've worked at 3 different running stores, so I feel like I just preach this all the time, but a lot of people are running in the wrong shoe for them. You may need more stability and you're just buying like a popular shoe or something like that. So that's also something you can do just by yourself, is seeing if you're running in the right running shoe.
Yeah, totally. And making sure it's current. So it's important to remember, you might hear blanket statements of like, shoes last between 300 and some crazy range, if we're being honest.
I know.
But everyone wears their shoe very differently. I wear my shoe way different than Shalane Flanagan wears her shoe, and different than like everyone's going to wear their shoe differently. And so that's like, it's sure, I guess looking at the range of 300 to 600 miles is a fine range to keep tabs on it, but everyone's going to be I'm really heavy on my shoes. So I usually like barely get to the bottom range, and everyone's going to be different.
Yeah. Okay, this one's a good one. Is it safe to work on mobility and isometric strength exercises every day, or should you do them every other day? How important is lifting heavy versus body weight exercises?
Okay, so you have to think about something called progressive overload, meaning it's a fancy way of saying your body will only adapt when it's being challenged progressively, when it's being overloaded. So this is the same, like, how I was just talking about, like maybe you can run for 10 minutes, but you can't run for 15. So hang out in 10-minute land. It's the same for strength training. So let's say you've never done any type of strength training before, and body weight stuff is actually like rough. Stay there. You know what I mean? Get used to that. You're going to see adaptations and strength gains, but there will be a point when you need to progress that load and start lifting heavier. So lifting heavy is like, I mean, it just depends where you are in the spectrum of strength training. So if you went from body weight, then maybe your next step might be bands. Now, I would argue that everyone could really use to pick up a weight. It doesn't have to be the heaviest weight in the world. A heavy is going to be relative per person. You know what I mean? And relative per where you are. A heavy weight for somebody who's 6 weeks postpartum is going to be different for someone who's not. So
Yeah.
don't get caught up on like heavy strength training. You should get caught up in learning about progressive overload. So making sure that you're continuously challenging your body, making sure that if your goal is for performance. Now, this is not knocking Orange Theory, CrossFit, F45, those other classes that you very well might be seeing gains in and having fun. For sure, that's awesome. But there might be that limit, right? We might get to that 10-minute part of the run and then not really see any gains anymore. And you might see that with those classes, in which case having a progressive program, which yes, might have you lifting heavier, is really important. So like I think, I mean, that's an answer that kind of like flips the answer entirely, because it's not necessarily about lifting heavy. It's just about like, how are you, what is your goal? You know, and that's really important too, because if you love going to these classes with your friends, then I would say you should do that. But you should do what you want to, what you enjoy and what you will actually do. You know what I mean? And some people love lifting, like seeing the progress week after week. And then on the question on isometric training, I assume you're asking because of like PT exercises. I mean, I think you don't have to do it every day. I would say a couple of days, a couple of days a week are fine. And it just depends what you're doing. Like if you're doing isometric hip exercises, then one day, and then the next day you're doing isometric ankle exercises, then sure, you can do those every day. Think about what joint and what tissues you're stressing. Could you do isometric training and then lifting the next day? Probably. I think that's fine.
Yeah. What I've been telling my athletes is if you don't have, I know some gyms are closed right now, and dumbbells and weights in general are like really expensive because they're in high demand. I say body weight is better than nothing. I'd rather you do body weight exercises just to get strength training in there than just not doing any type of strength training. But highly, highly recommend putting in weights in your schedule when you can. I mean, even if it's just 5 pounds, you know, that's better than nothing, especially when it comes to like squats and stuff like that. Just anything you can do to add more into there.
Well, and also remember there's like you can go to Home Depot and get some cinder blocks for $2, and each cinder block is 35 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
and my husband just got bags of cement and bought a mold of a 45-pound plate.
amazing.
And he's been making his own 40. I'm like, this is in our garage. I'm like, what is going on?
Oh my God, it's like the caveman times.
Oh yeah, he loves it. It works. And he's like, all you have to do is like spray paint it black if you want it to look official. But either way, it's 45 pounds.
And they haven't, you can't like throw those around.
No, they haven't. I mean, well, he'll like drop them, but not hard. I mean, it's in our garage, but they've been pretty solid as long as you just let it dry for like, I think it's like a 24-hour period. You have to let it dry in the sun, but they're like solid weights.
So are there molds of like, how does he make sure they're the right weight?
Yeah, you have to buy the right size plate. Like it will say, he got them online somewhere, the molds, and then just went to Home Depot for the cement. But I mean, the whole project itself to make like 4 45-pound like plates was like less than $50 because you just buy the mold, one mold at a time, and just get that's my husband for you. I'm not doing that.
That's awesome. I think that's hilarious.
Say PRX usually has bumper plates that are like safe for garage use, that they're not overly expensive. I think they were like $250 a pound for the Crumb rubber bumper plates. Sorry, dogs.
Oh, that's all right. Okay. This one was connected, so I'm going to jump right into it. What do you recommend regarding an interval run or tougher runs and strength training on the same day? So should we be doing strength training one day. I personally do it on its own day. I don't know if that's like the right practice or not though.
So you have to think about what your priority is. So you might be in a phase where you really want to be gaining strength, right? In which case, so there is a place for you to develop and improve in both running and lifting at the same time, for sure. But there you might get to a point where you are loading a lot, like stressing your body a lot with the strength training stuff, in which case I would say that's your priority. And so could you run on the same day? Sure. But then it would need to, like, your intention has to make sense. So if you're doing strength training, you're stressing those tissues that are, again, if we're lifting for strength or even hypertrophy, we're going to be lifting a decent amount of weight, in which case your run that day doesn't really matter when you do it. But it needs to be chill because your load for that day is your strength training. Now, could you do your strength, like a speed workout and then a strength workout later in the day? Yes. And in which case maybe your priority of the day is your fast workout. So then I would prioritize that first. So again, it just depends what your priority is. There's also nothing wrong with doing a speed workout and then the next day doing a lifting workout, though then you would really want to make sure you have the next day as totally chill. So what I'll do a lot is I'll do a really big workout on a Wednesday and then I'll lift Thursday morning, because then you also want to think about capitalizing the hours in the day. And so I'll do a lift Thursday morning so I can recover all day Thursday, all day Friday. And then by the time I get to my Saturday long run or workout, I'm pretty much recovered because I was able to kind of squish it all together. So think about the hours in the day as well, and not necessarily like, what do I do this day? What do I do this day? So priority, and then figure out how it all works in a 24, 48-hour clock.
That's a good point, because I feel like I work out in the evenings a lot now just because of work and kids, and I don't really take into the account the actual like full 24-hour or 12-hour period. I just think, oh, it's the next day, my body's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Like if anyone here has ever run an ultra, you might have had to do like quick turnaround runs, like where you run it in the evening and you wake up and you do a long run the next morning in training. So like that is something to think about too. Like your body is definitely not a machine. So you have to make sure that you're giving it the hours to recover without overthinking it, for sure. But it all makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay, I lost my place. Oh, how important is proper form? Should you do modified versions of an exercise if you cannot successfully complete a couple reps? So I guess this is in regards to lifting or strength training, proper form.
The most important. So sacrifice reps if you're not able to get your form in, not just from an injury perspective, but in terms of just getting complete range of motion and what you're doing. Perfect example. I've been working on my bench press, and I had a coworker humble me, I would say maybe a month and a half ago, finished a set, and I was like, yeah, I'm awesome. And he comes by, he's like, do you want the truth? And I was like, and we have like a brother-sister relationship. He goes, you want the truth? And I was like, yes, Corey, what's the truth? And he goes, you're not hitting full range of motion. Like your form could be better. And I was like, I actually had to leave. I had to like exit myself. I was having a really bad day. I had to like exit the gym, take a second. I like teared up for a second because I was not ready to hear that. And then I went back and I was like, oh, screw him. But so then the next week I had to very humbly go down in weight. I probably decreased 10, 15 pounds, worked on it for another 4 to 6 weeks. Guess what? I'm back up. My form is better. I wasn't hitting my bra strap with every press down, and he was calling me out for it. So I'm now training a wider range. I'm doing it correctly. I'm back up to the weight where I was, but I did have to back down before building back up. So, and I wasn't going to hurt myself before, but that is it could have been a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, form's most important.
Yeah. I remember, Mary, you were a rower too, so you understand, but I was a rower in college, and we would lift all the time, like 2-3 times a week sometimes. And our coach would get on us about deadlifts and squats because he's like, if you don't do them correctly, your back is just screwed. Like you have to do them correctly. And it humbled a lot of us because we're like, oh, we're rowers, we're strong, we can do all of this weight, and then our form would go to shit. Excuse my language, but and we were is just about the weight. And that's where I learned. I'm like, as long as I have the form down and the actual movement, I don't care how much weight I have. Eventually you'll get to that point. Okay, best ways to incorporate into a schedule with running and other cross training like spin and yoga.
Well, again, I mean, it goes back to, it depends on your goals, So like, I think actually this is something that I've been wanting to post about is like how to incorporate Peloton with your running, because everyone is a Peloton now. And, and I'm still waiting for mine.
When is it supposed to arrive?
March. I have like a 3.5 month waiting. And I'm injured. I can't even talk about it.
If you contact them, they might ship it sooner. That's what someone I know did.
I've called often.
Really?
I called often, and I even had an escalation because they were really jerky to me. And I called back and I was like, guys, and nothing. And I am like, well, I'm not going to buy my Peloton.
Disappointing. Yeah.
I'm going to get a Nordic track.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I know. I heard that too, Corey. Okay, wait. So the real question, I'm like spazzy today. So how to incorporate it depends on your priorities. So if you're going to run a marathon in 8 weeks, then I would say you might want to back away from the Peloton or use it as a supplemental training piece. So again, like the same question about lifting carries over here. So if lifting is your priority during that phase of training, then you want your runs to be super, super chill. Same with the bike. If you're trying to train for a marathon, then you want your bike, you can for sure supplement with a bike, but make it nice and chill. So like 30 to 40 to 60 minutes, just like hanging out, wear a heart rate monitor, know that the heart rate monitor on your wrist is not accurate. So get a chest strap if you are really concerned about it. And then, yeah, for sure, there's cardiovascular benefits for adding another session to your day. If you want to do it instead of running, then my next question would be, well, are you okay with running a minute or two slower because you did the Peloton instead of your training run? Because you get faster at running by running. You don't get faster by Pelotoning. You don't get faster by strength training. They can all help, but if you Google the law of specificity, which basically just says you get faster at said sport doing it. So with that in mind, just be realistic with your goals. And if you're not in any specific training block, then for sure, you actually could do the Peloton more than you could do a running workout because of lack of impact. So when I'm injured and I do bike workouts, I go bing, bing, and then recover. Like I do doubles. So you can actually do more when you're not hitting the ground. And cyclists will do that as well.
Yeah. And I would recommend using the bike for like recovery, if you have a Peloton, they have recovery rides on there. I mean, they're more so like recovery from the rides, but if you do have like a really stressful running week, I love low impact stuff just because I've been injured so much that I don't want to like keep testing my limits. And as long as you're still utilizing your muscles and getting your legs going, I think it's a great option.
I want to know how Carlin got her Peloton 2 months earlier. What the heck?
I'll tell you, my husband's a teacher and he's in person. So we wrote them and we were like, his first graders are going to be much happier if we have a Peloton because he was in person and it was like, he was considered a frontline worker. So I don't know whether that helped, but I'll tell you, I think writing often and giving them a little nudge helped.
Did you emailed or did you like paper write?
We emailed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I constantly check. Someone cancels, they know they can come to you. Just you get it. Like someone canceled the last time they talked and they have an opening. Like,
yeah,
that's
right. I haven't called in a few days. Not kidding. I literally call. I have the Peloton. I don't know if you can see that. The Peloton customer service number is next to my desk. I call them
love
out.
it.
They still are. They're like, oh, this girl. Too bad. March.
I would say something I'd be interested in is hearing how to use their running. So I don't have a bike, but I have a subscription. A friend of mine sells Peloton. So I have a subscription and I only do the tread.
Yeah.
Like tread.
Get your friend to contact Mary.
So my answer would be the same for the treadmill, because well, and like if you had a coach, like your coach would be writing you workouts, and if you don't and you're not doing speed workouts, then yeah, for sure, using the app's workouts is an awesome way to stay occupied and have fun and be with friends. But like it always comes down to what's your priority, and where are you placing the load? Like if that that was my one theme of coaching, is just like, what's your priority and where's your load coming from? Because it just like, you don't want to, and like, where have you been in your training life? So if you are doing another workout, maybe you work with a coach and you're doing another workout, would your body withstand another one on the Peloton tread? I don't know. I don't know what your history's been like. You know what I mean? So it just depends where you've been personally as well. Something called a training age.
Yeah. I would also, the Peloton app with the outdoor runs, sometimes I'll just put them on just because it's like a voice in your head. Like, you don't have to do exactly what they say to. Like, if you just wanted to go for a 3-mile run, but put on like a 30-minute Peloton, at least it's like a different workout playlist and someone talking in your ear. Sometimes I do that and then just ignore the like speeds that they tell me to go, because I already have it in my head on what I want to do. So, you're not stuck to whatever they say. One in the chat that we missed, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Yai or Yi. You can let me know. I might have mispronounced it.
Hi, it's Yi.
Yi, okay, hello. I saw in your chat that I wanted to talk about what to do in the winter months to stay motivated. I used the races I signed up for to stay active now, only the virtual races, but it's not the same for me. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. Virtual races, obviously, you don't get the same hype and energy from crowds, and it's so hard to stay motivated. I would just recommend knowing your why. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but if you don't have a race coming up or a specific pace goal, you can still be running for other reasons. It never always has to have like an end date for where your race is at. So my last Happy Runner Hangout with Lindsay, we talked about this a little bit, where it was more for like sanity. Like, running was literally just keeping us afloat right now, and that's what was getting us out the door. But that might be something different for you. I mean, maybe if you try like mixing it up and doing interval workouts and just different type of running workouts versus just like going out for a 3-mile or 6-mile run every day, it might kind of give you that spark a little bit. I don't know, Mary, if you wanted to add to that, but I feel like just know you're not alone. I feel like everyone is feeling this.
Yeah. I think there was Erin Strout wrote an article for Women's Running last week. You should check it out. It's basically how like some people are killing the coronavirus, like people are crushing quarantine. And then there's a lot of people who aren't, when it comes to just like motivation, mental health. Like, there's a lot of very real things happening too. And unfortunately, especially with social media, we tend to just see the happy things. So I think, first and foremost, like, I think everyone, even those who are like, running is my sanity, like, it's not the same right now at all. Yeah. And it's pretty normal. I mean, things that, I try to come up with goals with my athletes if they're feeling kind of whether it's doing your own time trials, which can be weird. That really jazzes me up way more than I thought it would. I was kind of like knocking it, and then I tried it and I was like, this is awesome. So your own time trials can actually be weirdly fun, and doing distances that you haven't done before, like a 5K or a mile, going to the track if you don't normally go to the track. Making yourself there's something called an FKT, so fastest known time. If you want to try to like place on a FKT leaderboard, or like just go to the trails and do something, because I see the Golden Gate behind you, so maybe you live among some beautiful trails, and I had one athlete who her goal was to run a certain mileage. And so, we worked on that for a while. So don't try not to think of it of like what isn't there, and just try to make your own opportunities, because there can be some really cool things that you make up yourself. And then if you're still like, I want people to support me, then tell your friends and family, or tell it can be really cheesy, honestly. Like before I got injured, I was going to run a marathon by myself, and I was just going to tell some friends and like go to the canal trail and do it, because I didn't want to do it alone. But B, I was just like, yeah, if I have a couple friends who are cheering me on, like I'll totally do it. So like there's a lot of, I think it's like most fitness things, when we tell friends, like it's really helpful.
And it doesn't have to be in person either. I know a lot of people are missing their like local running groups that they normally run with. I mean, use social media for what its good purposes. Post on there what you're doing, get other people to join you. And even if you have friends that like don't live near you, but maybe they're runners, you can like all text each other in the morning, like, all right, heading out for a run. So you're still kind of getting a little bit of that like accountability. At least you're kind of knowing like, okay, this person's out there running in their neighborhood too, or, something like that, to do whatever you need to do. I know I just did my virtual half marathon on Sunday, and I just had one friend run with me, and it was actually really nice because you can start on your own time. It's not like you have to start your race at 8 a.m. or, whenever an in-person race is. And you just kind of can like do loops. You can do an out and back, whatever makes it easy for you. Or like run somewhere that you normally don't run. Like I always run in my neighborhood. It's very rare that I drive somewhere to run. So for that half marathon, I drove somewhere, and I'm like, I'm going to have a change of scenery. And it kind of made me a little bit happy about it. I mean, it was just another neighborhood, but I'm like looking at the houses like, oh, it's just something different, like give your eyes something more to look at than what you see every day. My friend buys new workout clothes to get motivated. Yeah. I've been doing that. This is my third baby, and I swore I was not going to buy maternity clothes, whether it was workout or like regular, because I have so many. And what did I do? I bought like 2 new pairs of maternity workout leggings, because it's just nice to, have something else.
Yeah, but this is your first baby during a pandemic, so you're totally justified.
Yeah. It's a whole new style that the pandemic takes.
Exactly. I mean, yesterday I looked at my like one pair of sweatpants that I needed to wash for the week. I'm like, this is where we are. It's time to clean that one pair.
Yep. Or it's like I have multiple pairs, but I always wear the same one because it's my favorite. So it doesn't matter how many pairs I have. I just always like gravitate towards one. So okay, this has a lot. Someone said faster recovery, regaining endurance and speed, clothing and shoe recommendations in upcoming races. So I'm just going to we kind of talked about just a little bit just now, upcoming races and the unknown of everything. But we can talk about clothing and shoe recommendations. Again, highly suggest going to a local running store. A lot of them are doing them online now, where you can literally videotape you running back and forth in front of your camera, and they'll try and find a shoe that fits the way your gait is. They do a gait analysis. So for shoe recommendations, I would say do that first. Know what type of shoe you need to run in, because not every shoe is the same. Not every brand is the same. I personally run in Brooks. I used to run, so I'm a neutral runner, which means I don't need any stability. I don't pronate at all. And I used to run in their Pure line, the like Pure Cadence and Pure Flow. I don't think that they sell it anymore. But I would always have to buy wides in them because the shoe box was so tight. I'm not like, I don't have a wide foot. It was the weirdest thing. But now I run in the Brooks Launch and Brooks Levitate, and they have wider like toe boxes. So I don't have to buy wide. But so the moral of the story that I was just saying is, know what type of shoe you're looking for on shoe websites like Brooks, New Balance, Hoka's, anything that you're looking at. It will say under the shoe if it's a stability shoe, if it's a neutral shoe, and it will kind of give you like a grid. And that's how you can shop online for it once you know what you're looking for. And then also try different sizes. Like I know I have to size up a half a size in running shoes just because when you're running, one, my feet swell when I run long. So I just need that extra room anyway. But two, like running down hills and just running a lot, your feet might slide forward a little bit. So you want that extra room in your toe box, but it's different for everyone. So I love Brooks. They may not work for everyone. Go ahead and get fitted. I could go on and on about clothing, recommendations. So Mary, if you want to talk more about your favorite shoe or clothes to run in.
Well, someone just asked about, Alexander just asked about the Nike, the Next Percent, the Alpha Fly. Wow, they are magical shoes. They're something. So, I mean, do I think, my overall thought on them is that, do they make you a faster runner? If you are having a good day already, yes, they will 100% help. Well, I can't necessarily, they will 4% help. They will definitely, I think they help. If you are not fit at all, or you're just kind of like slapping the ground, they're not going to do anything. So I would say they are, like, in terms of my experience using them, if you're already going to have a good day, they're going to help you. If you're going to have a bad day, they don't do shit. Sorry. So I have both. The Alpha Fly is, let me go grab them to show you, because they're wild.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm boring when it comes to trying new shoes. I stick to my pair that I know work for me, and I never ever change it unless I need to. I hate it when
the same pair.
Yeah.
I just heard a podcast on Outside. I think it was actually from a couple of years ago. It's kind of old, but I'm finally catching up. And they talked all about, the different Nike, and I've seen them and I know they exist, and I've heard other people, the kind of battle about them, but I just never really, I don't know. I'm just curious to hear different ideas and thoughts.
So they look different. I would say, what I did a lot of research, because they're so expensive. And I was like, well, I want it to be worth it if I get them. So I had this one, I would say I had an old, like the original Alpha Fly, then it's done, it's dead. And so after that, I tried the Alpha Fly because it became available. So it's got this like this pump here, and it's quite a bit taller than this one. I have run on both. The general, what I have read is that the 4% is the shoe to do faster stuff on. So 5K and below. But then when you get up to 10K, well, 10K is kind of pushing it, but like half marathon, you want to go, or if you decide to go Nike and use these, it would be this shoe. That said, I have run my fastest 5 and 10K with this shoe because I had it before I got this one. I wanted to try this in a 5K, but then just never had the chance. So I definitely think the plate is significant. I also think that when it starts to wear, it's very apparent. Like after, I track mileage on these specifically to know exactly how many miles are on them. And it's not placebo. Like I would go on a run and like my first pair of Vaporflies, that when they started to just die, I was like, how many miles are on these things anyway? And like they were getting to the point of no return. So, are they worth it? I've run some quick times on them and I don't regret that. So yeah, but like I said, do they bring you fitness? No. If you are going to have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day anyway. And there's so many plated shoe options now. So the Saucony ones are very popular as well. There is both the Saucony Pro as well as Endorphin. Endorphin is so these are carbon fiber plated. So if you were to chop this, it's just this like big blade in the middle of the shoe. The Saucony Endorphin Speed, which is the middle one, is a plastic plate. So it's responsive, but it's not as like insane. And then the Endorphin Pro is Saucony's version of the carbon plate. Hoka has one, Adidas has one, everyone has one now. So I think they are helpful, but be careful. I have had people be injured. And quite honestly, this could be part of the reason why I'm injured, because I got injured a week after I ran a 10K on them. Though there's other reasons why I'm injured, but a lot of people that I coach got calf and Achilles things that popped up. I saw Carlin raise her hand. I don't know if yours was like lower limb too, but that's the one thing when I have people wear it for marathons, they're pretty beat up.
Well, I'll just share that I had a stress fracture, and my coach that I had after I trained for the marathon and had the stress fracture a week before the marathon said that because I have such a high arch, I'm someone who shouldn't wear a plated shoe. But when I bought the shoe, I never considered that. So not like we're talking about, everyone's foot's different, but I regret in some ways maybe not getting more opinions before I got that shoe, because I loved that shoe. I trained so well. And like I said, a week before my marathon, I had a stress fracture.
Well, I would argue though, like it's tough to be like, I mean, yes, everyone has a different shoe foot tendency, whether you're going to pronate a lot or supinate or whatever. I think especially for a bone injury, there are typically, that's why I said personally, like there are was running a 10K on the track in this shoe part of the reason why I'm injured? Yeah, but there's other reasons too. So I would just be wary of anyone who's like, this is the one reason why, especially when it comes to shoes, because the other thing is that shoes are actually like the shoe technology, the amount that it's gone from just 5 years ago is way different. And I'm not talking about plates. I'm talking about just like what shoes do. They're all very, very similar. So again, the carbon plate is very different, but like in general, shoes are not that offensive. So like, I think, I don't know. I think that's kind of a shame. Like, I don't think you should never try it again. That's my opinion. Like, I feel like there's probably other low hanging fruits. Did the shoe maybe aggravate things? Probably, but like, probably you had other things too that lined up perfectly to screw with what happened to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he did this, but I wonder if alternating that shoe with another shoe during your training might have helped a little bit. So you're not doing all of your runs on that carbon plated shoe. I wonder if that would have, sometimes our bodies also are just stressed and that causes a stress fracture. So sometimes it's everything to do with the shoe and sometimes it's only like one portion of the injury.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone had any comments or questions, you can go ahead and put in the chat box. Since we have 5 minutes left, I figured we can just chat here. But I just wanted to say a early thank you all for joining us and all the input. I'm going to look, Carlin, I saw you put an article on here, self-care for women runners during a pandemic.
Oh, that's
from Women's Running.
I think that was the one Mary mentioned, right?
Oh,
I just put it in because I was following up on her because I hadn't read it. So I looked it up for myself and then shared it. So
yeah. I know that there's a lot going on. How much speed work per work is beneficial when not in a specific training block?
Sorry, typo.
How many days of speed work?
Week. Yeah, like if you're not in a training block, once a week, should you be incorporating it just to maintain and maybe increase slightly?
I would say, first, what do you like? Because that's honestly most important. You want to do what you're going to do, like sustain, you know what I mean? Because if you do it for 3 weeks and you're like, I hate this, and then that doesn't mean anything. What I do and what a lot of people find sustainable is once a week. The other thing is strides and hill surges are so underrated. Oh my God. 2 days, the amount that you will gain from doing 2 days a week of between 4 and 6 hill strides is incredible. And they're not super offensive to your body. If you are a person who tends to get injured more often, then you want to look at the hills a little bit more. And for the duration, for a while, I was giving a lot of my athletes between 20 and 30 seconds. I started kind of cutting that down and having them go more explosive. So 7 to 10 seconds. We'll see how that pans out. But the true, like if you're actually wondering like what true alactic, which without oxygen, so anaerobic training, 20 and 30 is pretty long seconds. So truly the hill stuff could be between 7 and 30. And I know that's a range, but just doing that twice a week for 4 to 6 reps, or even up to 8 if you don't have much else going on that week. And then for an actual speed day, the amount of benefit you can get from just going out and doing short intervals is also incredible. Effort-based intervals. And I'm literally talking like 10 by, a minute on, a minute off, 6 by, 2 on, 3 off, like just playing with those numbers. And remember, back to my original banner theme, load matters. So you want to make sure that like if you're doing 10, the next week would be 10, and then the next week would maybe be 10 to 12 to, don't jump it quickly. But honestly, like I personally, my world was blown when my training had no more than 3-minute maybe 1 or 2 4-minute intervals. And I blew my 5K out of the water, my 10K out of the water. I think I did 4 tempos, 4. And all of my other training was like up to 2 to 3-minute intervals. So you can go, is it how much speed work? You don't need that much. The strides, the hills, and 1 day a week is really, really beneficial.
Yeah, I know I'm like, I love the mentality side of running. So I'm just going to go into that little topic a little bit. But I was reading in an article, I think it was on Runner's World a while ago, but they were saying even just the mentality of your legs hitting a certain speed. So whatever interval you're doing for even just a short, like Mary was saying, a short 30 seconds or a minute, mentally your mind connects with your body like, okay, you can get into this rhythm, you can hit that. So it's also just kind of fun to play around with that. Whereas normally, like if you see that speed on something that you need to hit and you've never felt that in your legs before, your mind's automatically going to freak out, right? Like, if you have a coach and they're like, you can run a marathon in this pace, and you see that pace and you've never hit it before, you're like, what in the world? Like, I can't do that. But if you do have those like little short bursts, at least you know the rhythm it takes for you to like get into your legs. So that's my little.
I would say effort is great. Like people get really hung up on pace, but effort-based training is awesome, especially now, because the other cool thing is that giving yourself a pace could actually hold you back. And when you see a certain number, be like, I shouldn't run that. That's got a 7.
True.
You know what I mean? Or 6 or whatever that number really freaks you out. So the benefit of just like going out and progressing as you go and just giving it what you've got is not only a healthier mentality, to Kelly's point, but also you might blow your expectations away.
Yeah. It's also why I recommend some of my runners run without a watch every now and then, because seeing your pace mentally can either freak you out or also just make you feel bad. If your effort is like extremely high and you look at your pace and you're like, are you kidding me? Sometimes I have my runners, they just use like a black tape or a Band-Aid or something, just tape it over the like pace part of their watch because they still want it to track what they're doing. I'm like, whatever works for you. Sometimes it's just better like not to know what your pace is.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, we can end there because it's 12:01. So it was like the perfect hour of conversation. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to send out an email after this to everyone that RSVP'd with Mary's website and Instagram information and just a little overview. I also recorded it. So if you guys ever wanted to go back and just listen to it while on a run or anything like that, you guys will be sent that link too. And feel free to send it to any of your friends that need it, since it's just a free conversation. All right, Mary, we are all set. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to see everyone. Have a good one.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.